In the spirit of reconciliation, Up Past Bedtime would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of all the incredible lands in which we record this podcast. By extension, we pay our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, their past and present elders, and the connection they have to Australia's land, sea, and community. Hello and welcome back to Up Past Bedtime. I'm Bella Messina and I am going to be staying up late with you tonight. However, I will not be alone. For season 3, we have our very first guest on today. Today's episode is going to be a powerful one. I'm sitting down with the incredible Keira Rumble, who is someone I've admired online for years, to talk about success for women, working as a mother, working as a woman, being, in charge of multiple businesses, and what all of that actually looks like for her in her season of life. Keira is the founder of Mini and Me, which if you're a personal follower of me, you would know is the creators of Hydra, the electrolyte drinks I'm literally addicted to and have every single day. She is also the owner of Habitual Beauty, which is a beautiful low-tox skincare brand that is designed for women to use during IVF and pregnancy. And then she also has Crumbled Foods, which is a no added nasties, good health treat brand. It's very, very yummy. They make these little probiotic beauty bites, which are so delicious. And I grab one every single time I'm in Chemist Warehouse. She is a powerhouse of a businesswoman. She is a mum of 2. She is a HG survivor, which of course you guys know I also had a hyperemesis gravidarum pregnancy. And she has walked a deeply personal journey with infertility and miscarriage. We do go into all of these things in the episode, and I think you guys will truly be blown away by her persistence and determination to get the things that she wants in life. And just recently, like me, she has been diagnosed ADHD and ASD in adulthood. So it was really fun also talking to her about that sort of aspect. I wanted to bring Keira on because she is someone who has really lent into the idea of embracing what success looks like for you individually and what success looks like in her season. Welcome to season 3 of Up Past Bedtime with me, Bella Messina. This season, we're doing something different, something special. This is going to be a true exploration of womanhood, of reconnecting to who I am and who I want to be. We're diving deep into my journey of rediscovery and growth as I navigate motherhood, healing, and everything in between. This season, I'm inviting you to come along with me because maybe you're finding your way back to yourself too. This is our season to rediscover her. Think of this as our late night heart to heart where nothing is off limits. Because as always, the best conversations happen when you're up past bedtime. Hello, Miss Keira Rumble. Welcome to Up Past Bedtime.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really excited to have you here and to have this chat. I did give you a little intro at the start of the episode, but Keira is an amazing businesswoman. We are personal mutuals on social media. We've talked lots of times. I've worked with all of Keira's businesses before. And when I was conceptualizing this season and me and my podcast manager were like, oh, we'd love to get like a businesswoman on the podcast. And she was like, Bella, do you have anyone in mind? I was like, instantly, yes, I do. I have someone exactly in mind that I would love to come on and have a chat with, because even though we're in like very different seasons and very different spaces, I feel like you and I have quite a lot of in common in terms of like some of the lived experiences we've had, which is really nice. But I'm going to stop yapping. For anyone who is just discovering you, Keira, how would you usually introduce yourself?
Wow. It's funny because so many years ago, I had, a full script of how I'd introduce myself, but I feel like I've actually really evolved, especially over the past year. And it's funny because this is ironically what you want to talk about today. But my name is Keira. I have 3 businesses, 2 toddlers and 2 little fur babies and I just live and breathe my work and my babies, and that's my whole life at the moment.
Which is totally fine as long as that's filling your cup. There's nothing wrong with being in your motherhood and working mum sort of era. You do have many amazing businesses. My personal favorite, Hydra Mama. I use it in my everyday life, have it all the time. And I know my audience also really loves it. I was actually talking to a friend yesterday who doesn't have kids. And we were talking about Hydra Mama, and she was like, well, like, can I use it? I was like, yeah, anyone can use it. I was like, it's got folate in it. And I was like, that's where the mama part comes in, because I was like, that's really great for pregnancy. But I was like, but yeah, I'm not pregnant and I use it like all the time. I was like, go off, queen. Like, you will love it. So one of the best like products I really think like that has been created in recent years, like something that is truly, I'm like, oh, this is a slay product.
Thank you.
Of course, Hydra Mama is just one of your businesses. You've got multiple. Do you want to give like a little overview of like what each one is and maybe like a little bit of the story behind them?
Yeah. So, I've got 3 businesses. I've got Crumbled Foods, which is my oldest business baby, that started when I was pre-diabetic. I was really unwell in my early 20s, and I finally got diagnosed with insulin resistance, or being pre-diabetic. And my doctor pretty much said to me, if you keep on going down this path, you will become diabetic and you really need to completely flip your life upside down. And, well, the other way around. And I went on this quest to create a health food company because I turned to the health food aisle in the supermarkets and I started eating those foods. And I didn't realize that a lot of them were just filled with hidden sugars. So I started studying nutrition and then decided, okay, well, if I have this problem, so many other people would. And then I just went on this quest to create a health food company. And I guess a whole lot of my businesses have just been created from my own lived experience. And so Habitual Beauty was created when I was going through fertility journey and IVF, and my embryologist at the time said to me, what are you putting on your skin? And it was at that point that I was like, okay, it's so much more than just what was going on internally. It was everything, what I was cleaning my household with, what I was putting on my skin, what I was eating. And I decided to create a clean, safe skincare brand that was pregnancy safe too. And then after all of that, I got hit with really bad HG. And that's where Minnie and me and Hydra Mama came from. So I guess at the core, all of my businesses are just from heart-led lived experiences. And I think that's what has made it so successful.
For anyone who doesn't know, HG is hyperemesis gravidarum, and it is like intense, extreme, persistent, constant morning sickness that can occur in pregnancy. It only affects 2% of pregnant women. Unfortunately, Keira and I are both within that 2%. We have both gone through very horrendous, very sick pregnancies. I think that's how we initially connected, was like through that like HG journey, because it truly soul bonds you to any other woman who has had it, because you both just know like you have gone to hell and back to get your baby's earthside, because hyperemesis is like something I can't even describe to people what it's like. I'm like, you know, when people get like, they'll say like, oh, I've got gastro or food poisoning and it was like the worst 3 days of my life or whatever. I'm like, okay, now do that for 9 months. I was like, that's what having hyperemesis is like. I was like, it creeps into every aspect of your life. You are so physically sick, mentally sick, like it is a really tough place to be in, which again is how I got onto Hydra Mama, was like started using it in Benny's pregnancy. And I was like, oh my God, I wish I'd had this in Rosie's pregnancy when I don't know if you experienced this with your first baby, but Rosie's pregnancy was like so much harder because they kind of make you hit like milestones, right? When you get diagnosed with hyperemesis. So they don't just like give you the good stuff straight away. Like at first they're like, why don't you try ginger? And then you go back the next week. Like I'm still vomiting my guts up every day. They're like, okay, well, let's take you off your prenatal and you can just take the folic acid. And then you do that, you go back and you're like, I'm still sick. Like, okay, let's try B6. Like, just give me the medicine.
The meds.
I'm so sick. So in Rosie's pregnancy, like I was so much sicker than I was with Benny's, just because I didn't have a treatment plan till like oh gosh, 18 weeks, I think, by the time like we eventually got around to being like, okay, she's not getting better no matter like all these things we're trying. And yeah, the second I tasted it, I was like, oh my God, this would have changed my life, because I was living off Coca-Cola, like no other form of nutrients, Coca-Cola. And sometimes, some days I'd get a bowl of 2-minute noodles. And I was so stressed the whole time, because Coke, I love Coke. I'm a Coke addict, but like, it's not good for you, right? It's just pure sugar. And I was like, this cannot be good, because I'm drinking like a liter of Coke a day, because that's all I can like sip on all day and stomach. Most of it came back up anyway, but I really, it's bad. But yeah, so we definitely like bond over the whole HG trauma. Now, from the outside, a lot of people would listen to this and be like, oh my gosh, she's got 3 really big businesses. Lots of my audience would know your businesses, have used them, have loved them. And I guess people would, kind of put this definition of success on you. And I guess the whole purpose of today is I really want to go through the journey of someone who's done a lot, like traditionally in terms of like success and businesses in the workforce, and really talk around how that journey can change and how your definition of that can change. And a thing I'd really love to know is when people say to you, oh my gosh, you're so successful, does it feel like that to you?
I think I'm slowly starting to realize that my hard work is starting to pay off. Mm-hmm. And success means something not traditional in the sense of money.
Yeah.
It means that, I'm less anxious. I mean, 3 years ago, we were nearly bankrupt. We were struggling so much to pay wages. We committed to leasing a factory, and there was delays, and our roof was leaking. We lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in damaged products from leaking roofs. And it was just, the business was in a real, like very close to being bankrupt. Yeah. And the anxiety that came along with that was so intense. We've grown significantly since then and turned over 8 figures, and the business is thriving, and my hard work has really started to pay off. But with that comes so much other stress.
Yes.
But in terms of success, it means that, I'm able to spend a little bit more time with my babies. The business is going well. I'm not stressed about that financial part. But at the same time, we're dealing with growth and significant stress in other aspects. But yeah, I think I'm slowly starting to actually be really proud of what I've done.
When you first started out, did you have like a different idea in your head of what success was meant to look like?
I think that because it started so slowly and organically, I mean, I've had a business and an ABN for over 10 years. So I think that's one big thing that I really want to stress is this hasn't been an overnight success story, and it's been long and hard, and I've learned a whole lot of what not to do in business. And I think when I started out, it was me hand rolling protein balls and dropping them off to cafes. I had no idea that it was going to turn into the fact that we've literally just purchased our own factory. And, I never thought that we'd have 35 people working for us. I never thought that we'd have over, 200,000 orders. I'd never think that. So it's hard to say what I actually pictured success, but now I'm very much into vision boards, mindset, trying to shape what my future will look like and try and figure out how I go from here to the next milestone, which is something that I haven't done before. And that's only been in the past 2 years that I've started to do that.
I feel like people who are not in business or even in e-commerce or like product, like production or anything, like when you're saying like, oh, we have a factory and like we like manufacture our products, whatever, that's huge. Like that is really different, very individual. I actually don't know a single other business at your scale that does that still within Australia. It's a really big thing to say that you make like it all here. And I was actually talking to like a friend in business and I mentioned like, oh, no, they manufacture it. And she was like, no, there's no way they do. I was like, no, they do. Like, I know they do. I've seen pictures of like the machines, like they definitely do. And she was just like, oh my God, like that is so cool. Like that is so clever. Anyway, we had like this big discussion about it. So I feel like, to the everyday Joe, when you're like, oh, we've got a factory, they're like, oh, that's cool. But like in a business sense, it's like, no, that is really cool. That is really special. But like you were just saying before, you were almost like bankrupt and everything was like going down. So what happened? Like, how did that turn around from being low to then being like, okay, we've gotten this back on track, like we're doing it this way? Like,
it wasn't just one switch. I mean, 3 years ago, I was pregnant or about to be pregnant. My daughter is 2 today. So, there's so many factors. So I was pregnant. I was barely surviving. We had signed a lease and we decided to not go down the route of contract manufacturing anymore. We went through the Supreme Court process with our old contract manufacturer. Really messy, cost us so much money that we did not have. So we had to borrow money off my father-in-law to fund that. And it was just a whole storm of shit. And I think what took us out of that is I returned back to work quickly after having my baby. I decided that in order for us to grow, I needed to have control over everything. So I took all my Facebook advertising in-house. I took control back of a lot of things. We started manufacturing. We launched Minnie and Me. We decided to go all in, my partner and I, who was also the father of my children. We were like, okay, we've got 2 years to really turn this around. What are we going to do? And that meant him literally sleeping at the factory for nights for endless nights. When I had a newborn, I was surviving 2 under 2 and I was doing my thing and he was sleeping at the factory trying to keep the business afloat. And then I was trying to work during the day. It was so stressful and we have sacrificed so much. So I think that it's just been this constant trying to push for what we knew was possible in the back of our heads. We just decided we had to go all in.
It's really crazy because this is actually a concept that I've talked a lot about, privately and publicly, that I feel like when you kind of hit a rock bottom moment or you hit a moment where you feel like, everything's on the line, I've pretty much lost, everything and it's a make or break kind of moment, you can shock yourself with how much you can turn stuff around and achieve when you just are like, okay, I've got no other choice. I've just got bum down, make this happen. And I was actually talking to a therapist about this the other day, that is called post-traumatic resilience. And it's a studied thing that when you go through a really hard time, your brain changes to the point that you can grow as a person and then better yourself from the result of going through a super stressful situation. Now, speaking of stressful situations, having a newborn, etc. Now, you do have experiences with infertility, miscarriage. How has motherhood come in and really shaped your definition of success?
I'm doing it all for them.
Yeah.
I literally do everything for them. I want to show them that if your heart desires, you can do it. My mum used to always say, if you have dreams, follow them. And I think that's so important. And I think success is just, especially around motherhood, it's showing your children that everything you do is for them, but also for yourself.
Yeah.
And they just create just so much purpose in my life. Every single day I get home, whether or not it's been an absolutely awful day, they're so happy to see me.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful. And the fact that I've had 10 pregnancies and 2 living babies, they are just my absolute world. And I think that, especially when I was going through the HG, the first pregnancy with my son, for so long, I just had my head buried in the sand saying, oh, I have to be so grateful for this pregnancy because I'm having a baby. Yeah. And there are so many people out there that don't have their babies. Mm-hmm. And it took me a long time to realize it's okay to admit that you're absolutely miserable and hate this whole process.
Yes.
And I don't think I really understood that until my daughter's pregnancy where, I was suicidal. I wanted to terminate. It was just the darkest hell that I've ever experienced, mm-hmm. which carried on into postpartum depression.
Yeah.
And postpartum rage. And it was the first year of her life was so dark for me. Mm-hmm. And I threw myself into work and I threw my whole body was just screaming out. And I actually got diagnosed with ADHD. Mm-hmm. And I think that moment when I started to be medicated was the moment that my brain chemistry was like, okay, we have a little bit of quiet now and we have vision again. And I think I spent 34 years or 33 years not being diagnosed, and my brother's diagnosed, my mother's diagnosed, I went under the radar because I was masking so much. And since then, this year I was diagnosed as autistic. My ASD traits was so much more prominent when I got diagnosed with ADHD and got medicated, because all of a sudden my brain was like, okay, well, we've got a quiet ADHD brain now, we can focus. And then all of a sudden these ASD traits just started popping up that I wasn't masking anymore. And it gave me this evolution of who I was. And I have so much clarity of why I have 3 businesses and why I am the way I am, and why certain settings just really drain me and exhaust me, and why things are such a sensory overload for me. And I have so much more of an understanding now.
Yeah.
And it's truly been transformational.
I think it's like, there are a few things, like, I think it's really interesting, like, to point out, like, when I say you've struggled with like infertility, like you've had a lot of miscarriages and you had a lot of trouble conceiving. Like I would say like more than just the usual bit of like, oh, we're having a little bit of trouble. Like you've had like quite chronic issues with having a baby. And so then like, you know, when you then have a baby and then you have a really hard pregnancy, it is confronting to have feelings of like, I don't want this. And I feel like especially when you have hyperemesis, the thing that is always thrown back in our face is, oh, but there are some women who can't have a baby. Like you just have to be grateful for pregnancy. And that is a really hard thing to go through, because like when you were talking about like termination in Rosie's pregnancy around like 11 or 12 weeks, I called my mum in like tears one day. Like I hadn't gone to work in weeks. And I called her in tears and I was like, I cannot do this. Like I cannot do another second of this. Like I am so sick. I'm so miserable. I do not understand how people have babies. Like what is going on? Like this is horrendous. And like that was such a shameful feeling as well to have, to be like, oh, you are so lucky to have this baby and to not have any issues conceiving this baby. And, you know, you're really young and you should be really healthy and your body should be designed to do this. Like, why are you sitting there being like, I don't want to, I want to give up? And I think people don't understand that. Like for you, you can see in all these different like parts of your life so much persistence and like determination and like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to push, I'm going to like make this happen. And I think that's really cool, because I find sometimes from the outside, like especially around like females in success, there's always this narrative that like, oh, they're just lucky. Oh, it just happened to them. Like men don't get that. Like men don't get like, oh, he just like happened to be in the right place at the right time. It's always like, oh, he's really, you know, strategic. He's really hardworking. It's whatever. And then women get this of like, oh, you know, they must have a man in the background that's like doing X, Y, and Z for them. They did this or whatever. And it's, I think, really important when you hear female stories of people who are really like, I actually had so much working against me and I just like dug in and was like, I can do this. It's really nice to hear that, rather than the alternative of like, oh yeah, I just like woke up and then, you know, built this like, you know, 6-figure, 8-figure, 7-figure business. I think.
Well, it's funny because, sorry to interrupt. It was funny because once we started turning over 8 figures, I obviously celebrated. I was like, this is amazing, huge milestone. And I didn't share it with anyone really, except the team, because obviously we were working with targets. And then I shared it with a friend and she's like, why haven't you spoken about this? I'm like, I don't want to talk about money. No, people won't like me. Why am I talking about money? And she's like, babe, it's not the fact that you have a bloody yacht in your driveway. She's like, you haven't paid yourself a wage. You've only paid yourself twice, like 2 payrolls. You haven't paid yourself. You put everything back into the business. I was like, no, I don't feel comfortable. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. It went over 6 months of people saying, you need to start speaking about it. You need to start speaking about it. And then someone said, if you were a male, you would not hesitate to talk about it. Why haven't you? She's like, you need to show people that, you know, you can go from 6 figures to 7 figures to 8 figures. And this whole notion of, you know, why haven't you? Why haven't you spoken about it? Why weren't you documenting it? And I think it was a really big moment. I was like, that is absolutely true. And this bro culture of masculine CEO life, I feel really insignificant still, when the reality is a lot of these people I have, you know, my business is more successful. But even saying that, I feel cringy and I feel really uncomfortable speaking about it. But why is that?
And I think it's really interesting that success within males is not only celebrated, but they're encouraged to share it, right? And then within women, it is like really discouraged. And the problem with that is, and like I've talked about this on my own pages so many times, is like the problem with that is like because men are encouraged to speak about finances and success, they learn from each other, right? And then they keep going ahead. And because women are discouraged and we are like, oh no, it's rude, it's taboo, it makes me look this way, whatever. We don't talk about it like when we meet up with our friends or when we grab a coffee or on our social medias or whatever it is. And as a result, we don't learn and we don't grow at the same rate as like men who are in the exact same positions. And it's really interesting that when you think that the opinion will be very negative, but I don't know if you find the same way. But I feel like when you open up about vulnerable things, the response is more people being like, oh my God, I'm so glad someone has frickin' said something about X, Y, and Z. Or I'm like, I'm so glad someone's sharing about this. Because a lot of the time there are people who are feeling the exact same way as you and just don't have like anywhere to kind of get it out. Like even the things around like our pregnancy struggles or like the situation that I'm going through at the moment, like with the marriage breakdown or, you know, you saying like, you know, this is what my business has done or whatever. There are so many people who want to talk about things that we are told like, oh, don't talk about that. That's not very nice. And yeah, I just feel like it is, if anything, like the best thing that can come from it is like community building and growth.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's so important. I remember the first time that I shared my loss online, and it was after my heterotopic pregnancy, which is like an ectopic and a miscarriage at the same time, double whammy. So a dual pregnancy. And I just picked up my phone and I just felt like, okay, I'm going to document this. And my partner came down and he's like, oh gosh, I don't know. Like, I don't know if you should share that. Are you sure? You know, should you do it? And he's like, do it if you want, but just maybe sit on it. I'm like, no, I've been sitting on this.
Yeah.
I've like had this burning desire. And as soon as I did it, we were just sitting there and I was like, I'll take it down if like it's not received well. And he wasn't doing it from a negative, but he's just like, are you sure you want to open yourself up to this? And from that moment on, I felt like the DMs and the responses coming through, I felt like my purpose was really to share what some people couldn't.
Yeah.
And I feel like now the business is in the point where I can start doing things like yesterday it was HD Awareness Day and we were able to raise a considerable amount. And I'm now in a point where I can talk about these and I can now actually start giving back. And that's another thing that I don't like sharing because I feel uncomfortable talking again about money.
Yeah.
But as soon as I've started speaking about it, other people are like, can you tell us how, like, give us your business tips, tell us all of these things. And I think that part of my life is to be able to allow people to feel more seen and to start speaking about these things that people don't normally talk about. And I don't know, I might be completely, the whole talking about money, I think is really interesting because if someone listened to me saying, oh, she's got an 8-figure business, she's out of touch, she might not, you know, out of touch. But I think the fact that everything that I do is going back into the business. And, you know, I think that
even if it wasn't, you can take it. Like,
I know.
You're safe over here, doll. You know that I'm very good friends with Victoria Devine. Her and I are like champions for like women can say whatever they want about money because men do. Yeah. But it is like a really tricky thing to go through. Do you find that you were saying before, you know, you were diagnosed ADHD and then you were diagnosed ASD, which is the same for me. And very common, the pipeline, I actually talked about it in my last episode, the pipeline of postpartum depression to ADHD to ASD is very, very common. Like it's usually motherhood is like a big thing that like brings out a lot of our symptoms because you get postpartum depression, you don't have the ability to mask anymore. And then it's just like a free for all, like, and everything starts falling apart. Do you think like you have now become better at sharing things from that journey? Like learning more about yourself and being more comfortable and knowing more about who you are. And then you're like, okay, I feel like I can share more.
I think I always, from that moment where I started sharing the loss, I think I've always been able to talk about things like that. But I think that my mindset has shifted and I feel like I'm in this different chapter where I have so many layers and I feel like it's all led me. Everything that I've gone through has all led me to where I am today. Yeah. And I think that it's so many layers upon layers. And I definitely got in the mindset when I was deep in my pregnancy with my daughter that I must have done something wrong in a past life, you know, to be given all of this. And then when I was peak in P&D, I just felt like it was just going to be a cycle that I was going to keep on going through of all of this hardship and heartache. And there was no, end, and there was no finish to that constant cycle.
Yeah.
And I feel like now I finally feel lighter. I definitely haven't processed all the trauma, but I feel lighter in the sense that I have clarity.
I definitely feel the idea of like, oh, I must have done something wrong in a past life.
Absolutely.
You could not count how many times I've said that probably in the last 6 months and been like, I don't know what the heck I've done, like what karma I'm reaping right now, but like this is just thing after thing after thing after thing. And when you're in it, it does feel that way. It does feel like you're almost like there is some like existential thing that is like doing this to me. Like this cannot, like one person cannot go through this much in one go. So it's nice to hear that you're like, there is an upside. There is an upside in the end. But I think one thing I'm really curious of is like you've gone through this big journey. You've been in business for 10 years. You've got a long-term partner. You've had 2 kids. I think there, especially in today's day and age, this idea that like women can have it all and like women can, have all of their dreams. What do you think about that? Because I feel like looking at you, people would say like, oh, she's ticked so many of the boxes that I wish I could tick in my life.
I think women definitely can have it all. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that I definitely think the notion of work-life balance is not where I'm at, and mum guilt is so intense with me.
Yeah.
I think that women, I mean, I look at my mum, right? 4 kids. There was a 16-year gap between myself and my baby brother, same partner. Same, my dad.
Yeah.
She was a stay-at-home mum for so many years. And she was the best mum. She still is. I watched her be such a present mother, and she was the epitome of someone that was doing what she wanted to do. And she always told me, follow your dreams, follow your dreams, follow your dreams. And unfortunately, her and my dad got a divorce, and mum had to learn at the age of 52 what she wanted to do. And I think that no matter what you want to do, and ironically she's now working for me, but no matter what you want to do, you can do it. And if that's being a stay-at-home mom, that's amazing. If that's what you want to do, that's amazing. And if you want to work and if you want to do all the things, you can. So I think you can, but I think it's about having that resilience and having the perseverance.
Yeah. Do you think motherhood has really changed like your relationship with like time, productivity, achievement? Like
now that I'm medicated, yep. No, I think that I have set clear boundaries, and that is on the weekends I try not to work until the kids are asleep. Once I get home, I am
for
them until they go to I think so. Yeah, it's about the boundaries that I've tried to put in place. But I think, I always say to the girls, hire a mum because they are going to be so efficient because they get to work, they get shit done, and they leave.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't imagine like with my situation, like obviously the pipeline from stay-at-home mum to single mum is actually very like statistically incredibly common. My thing is I've just hit that pipeline a lot earlier than most people do. And at first I was really down about that. I was like, oh gosh, like I'm 28. Most of my friends are just getting engaged or just getting married or just having their first baby. And it's like, I've been married, I've had 2 kids, now I'm getting divorced. And I used to get really in my head about it and be like, oh my gosh, this is so sad. I don't have anyone else around me that's doing the same thing or going through the same thing and blah, blah, blah. But then when I hear stories of like it happening to women much later in life, I'm actually like, no, I'm kind of glad I'm going through my reinvention era at 28 and not 52 because that would be such a hard thing to go through. And like this is something I've talked to a lot of people recently around the idea of I think people sometimes forget that no matter when you have a reinvention era or like no matter when, you get things to turn around or you like really dig in and do success, have success, it's not pretty. Like, I think people think that like that journey is like, oh, like you did X, Y, Z, and then that equaled what you're looking for. And it's kind of like, no, a lot of it is just bootstrapping and like throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks and then going with that. And I think that's okay. I feel like you would probably have the same feeling about like your journey to where you are now. Like it would not have been as linear and as organized as you probably would have liked it to be. I think it's really normal to like, it be chaotic and you to be like, I actually have no idea what I'm doing and I'm just making it up each day as I go along. If you could go back, you're like, I'm still there. Well, you've had extreme growth in like the last year. Didn't you like quadruple your staff or something like that?
It's been, we've had to learn hard and fast about how to scale. And there's been some serious teething issues. I mean, we are still, going through peaks of backlogged with dispatch. Yeah. And, we've had to invest heavily into machinery. My partner was just over in China buying new machinery to help maximize efficiencies. We're buying a factory and a warehouse, and then we're about to get another dispatch location. It's been, peak stress. And it was funny, I was talking to a friend today about the difference of stress. And I said, I don't know if I'm more stressed now than I was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I think I was far more stressed about not having, the ability to pay rent.
Yeah.
And all of that, because that's what kept me up at night.
Yeah.
Now I've got an Aura ring, and holy hell, some days it's like 6 hours of stress, and that's a lot. And I think that it's just, I've had to really lean into learning quickly.
Yeah.
About what to do, and we're still learning. And I think one of my biggest fears was talking about revenue and how many orders we've done, is people would think that, oh, they're a giant business, but we're really like, I have my friends and family still working for me, and we have just experienced this huge growth.
Yeah.
We're trying really hard. I mean, what keeps me up at night now is knowing that we've got a backlog of orders some weeks.
Yeah.
That's what keeps me up, because I know there are sick mamas out there being like, please give me my product. Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm trying my best. If you could go back to your like early 20s self, what would you say about like the pressure to like arrive at a certain like point, or like the pressure I'm sure you would have put on yourself to be like, okay, you need to do like X, Y, and Z and be X, Y, and Z? Like, would you have something that you wish you could have told yourself?
I think I spent a large part of my 20s just fixated on being a mother.
Yeah.
And I didn't get there. I think that was where my whole entire focus was, from really 24, 25, was just fixated on being a mother and obviously the business and the success. And I wish I could just shake myself in my early 20s and go, you'll be okay. I promise. It's going to be hell, but you'll get there. And I think I had to go through what I went through to have a deeper understanding. And I think one of the biggest things that I don't do enough is sort of say, you like went through a lot.
Yeah.
And you're okay. Yeah.
It is hard to like actually admit like, no, that was fucked. Like that was not a good time and that was not a fun time. But I feel like anyone you talk to that goes through a season where things are really, really low and really, really rough is in a weird, like bittersweet way. I feel like we're all a bit like, yeah, that was the worst time ever and I would never want to do it again. But also I'm so grateful for everything it taught me and all the lessons I learned and like the person it made me. And like sometimes when stuff is really, really bad, that's like the one thing I hang on to where I'm like, this has made you like a better person tenfold over. Has made you more empathetic, more understanding, more aware of like the world and what happens. But it's really, really hard at the time because you're like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go through this. I want to talk a bit about like, we've talked about like your journey, but where you're at right now. I think, what would you say in this season of life is your definition of success, or what version of success are you working towards?
Happiness.
Yeah. Do you think you're close?
Some days.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. I think that I still need a lot more therapy.
Yeah.
And I keep on not putting myself first. I mean, the past month I've been, hit with tonsillitis, sinusitis, and then bloody parainfluenza. I didn't even know that was a thing in adults. But I think my body is literally screaming for me to slow down. Some days I feel really happy and I'm proud. But then other days, this just wave of grief just rolls on in. Yeah. And I think I put more pressure on myself now than I ever did.
Yeah. I think as well, like the hard thing with ADHD is like the idea of rest and slowing down is actually something very hard for our brain to do, because we get satisfaction in the doing. Like that's the whole thing that comes, like the moving, the going fast, the being busy. That is our default. That's how we like to exist. And I think, you know, a result of that is, you know, usually being an overachiever. So then you get this like core belief of like, I am my best when I am achieving. And so then I find I get this like rhetoric in my brain where I'm like, okay, well, if I slow down, I can't achieve. And therefore I don't have value. I'm not successful. And I am really in a season right now where I'm trying to be like, okay, let's challenge yourself and show yourself that you can be just as happy and just as productive or have just as much success, but still rest and still have down times, because burnout is such a real thing. And I feel like it is, especially with mothers and working mothers, a really big thing, because we are told like, oh, you got to have it all, you got to do it, blah, blah, blah. And the downside of that is like never filling your own cup, never resting, never like enjoying the moment. I was actually talking to a friend yesterday and she was like saying to me, she was like, oh yeah, I feel like really burnt out. And I was like, oh, why do you feel that way? She was like, you know, I was like in this moment with my family the other day and, you know, it was a really happy moment and my brain could tell me like, oh, this is a really happy moment. She was like, but I felt nothing. Like she was like, I just kind of felt like I'm so tired. I just want to go to bed. And I was like, I feel like that is so common with so many mothers, that idea of just like, pushing ourselves to the complete pits and then just being like, I can't do anything more. And usually, you do just bottom out with like sickness in one way or another, either physical or mental, something creeps in. So your body is like, you have to rest, like you get no choice.
Over Easter, it was when I sort of rested and then my body was like, you're going to get sick now. And it was like literally the epitome of burnt out trying to rest, and your body's like, okay, we need to just actually make you properly rest.
Yeah. If happiness is like the version of success you're really striving for at the moment, what are you prioritizing and what are you letting go of?
Oh, I think leaning into this new version of who I am and realizing that happiness doesn't have to look like happiness all the time. I think having that expectation that sometimes it's going to be really hard and sometimes you need to just feel the feelings and try and separate emotions from logic, which is what I'm really trying to do now. So I didn't really answer your question. What am I trying to do? Spend more time with the kids on the weekends and making sure that I actually create memories with them, trying to put my phone down more, we're trying to go on a holiday this year, whether or not we do it. Never been on a family holiday, you know? So I think that there's so many things that my partner and I have sacrificed. And I think now we're in this point of going, okay, we set the business up, we get more team members, we try and have this evolution within the team and the brand. So then perhaps we can do a little bit more for us.
If you were talking to a woman who feels like she's not chasing her own dream, or like she can't chase her dreams, or she's not going to get to like a place where she wants to get to, or she's just not happy with like her definition of success in her life, what was one thing you would say to them? Like if someone came to you and they're like, how did you do it? Like, what should I do? Like, what would be your advice?
It's a really good question.
Have you ever been asked that before?
I don't think so.
Really?
Hence why I'm like stumped in the way that you asked me. No, I think that I would say to really lean into what their gut was saying. I'm very intuitive, always read my gut, try and sit in with it and then rationalize it in my head. And I think that was what has led me to where I am today. And I think writing a list and writing something down so you can see it and write I mean, my friend messaged me the other day. She's like, I've been offered another job, pays the same, but XYZ. And I said, have you written the pros and cons? And she's like, yes. And I'm like, okay, well, let's dissect that. And so I think now I'm very logical, and I think that's what I did do without knowing when I was in the thick of it. So I think it's sitting in to what you're feeling and really trying to dissect it is probably my biggest advice.
I think that's really powerful though, as a woman, to say, like, especially someone who is successful, to say that like gut intuition is a big thing that you depend on, because I feel like we are often told like, oh no, like don't, overthink it, don't do this, whatever. And often, I don't know, almost gaslit into not believing our intuition. But I feel like especially as a mother, intuition is such a big thing that we are given in nature to rely on. Like that is literally a skill in motherhood that is given to you. Like your hormones give you like intuition to like, micro read situations and whatever.
Yeah.
So it's cool to hear someone who's like been through like a very successful journey to be like, oh yeah, I'm a big believer in the gut feeling.
Yeah. I'm also really determined and stubborn. So I think that definitely has played a large part. My partner said to me a few years ago, and he's like, maybe we just sell. Maybe we just, see if anyone would want to buy it. And I was like, nah, let's just go all in. And I kept on saying that. And I think that ignorance is bliss to a degree. But there was something burning inside of me to go, no, I believe in what I wanted to do. And I think that is where it's really important about what you want to do. I think that heart-led businesses are what truly sets businesses apart, and having a passion. And for me, it's creating products to help people.
Yeah.
And I think that is at the core of what I bring everything back to, and my why.
I think it's so important though. Like I say the same with like, I often get people being like, oh, I want to grow like, my platform, and I want to, be a content creator. I'm like, great. Like why though? Like what story do you have to share, or what purpose are you meeting? Because I was like, if you just want to be here for free things and money, you're going to burn out and not enjoy it and give up within like a year. Because I was like, there's a lot of like downsides. Like, yeah, getting paid and getting free products from amazing brands, that's great. But I was like, it's not enough to keep you going creatively, to keep you producing good content, to keep your heart in it. I was like, you have to have like a bigger why. And I think that's any business. Like, you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have like any investment in it, like it's never going to like fulfill you in any way. And it's why I've had people before being like, oh, would you want to like open this business with me? I'm like, no, because I just don't have any, like, there's no soul tie for me to that. Like, and I think, I've had businesses, with my ex-partner for like 10 years, and like, how much like blood, sweat and tears goes into something. It's like, no, like if I'm going to commit like that much money, time, energy, everything, like I need to make sure it's something that like really is like, yes, this is like lighting me up. Otherwise you're just going to be miserable because the sacrifice is not worth the reward. I kind of feel the same about having kids. Like I'm like, you got to really have that like fire in your belly about it. Otherwise you're going to get to a point where you're like, this is so much give and like very little take.
Yeah.
Or like, kids don't really like pay off until they're a bit older and they can interact with you. They're a bit more self-sufficient. Like the early years, you're just like grinding for like, you get a smile and you're like, oh my God, yay, so exciting. Like it's not a big payout for you. So I always said the same about motherhood. It's like, yeah, if you're going to have kids, that's great. But make sure you have like a real passion for having kids, because it's not a lukewarm thing to kind of like jump into.
And I think it's really important what you said about you've got to follow the passion, because there are times at 2 a.m. that I'm doing spreadsheets and forecasting and all of these things that are just not my jam, but I've got to do it. Yeah. Like there's so many things that I do every single day that I don't, it doesn't spark joy in me. And it's funny with the Aura Ring, when I do the things that I'm truly passionate about, my like baseline for stress goes into like the resetting and recovery mode, even though I am working and doing things. Yeah. And it's really interesting having something that's so literal, tracking everything, going, okay, I'm writing a book. This is what, I love doing.
Yeah.
Creating recipes is what I love doing. Creating products is what I love doing.
Yeah.
Being creative and creating content is what I love doing. But dealing with HR stuff, I do not love doing that. You know, dealing with payroll, I don't love doing that because it's numbers, you know. So there's so many elements of you've got to have the good and the bad in order to have that success.
Yeah, you can't have it all. Like you can't have it just be good all the time. Like there is ups and downs. And I feel like sometimes definitely on social media, success can be very much romanticized. And then I feel like that's why people, when things start getting hard, they back out because they're like, well, this doesn't look like, you know, what I thought, like, you know, it was all la-di-da-di-da all the time. This isn't la-di-da-di-da right now. I guess I must be doing something wrong. I'm going to give up. It's like, no, unfortunately, like that is the reality. The backside of it is like there are times where it's not very rewarding. It's not very giving. And you just got to like buckle down and push on. Well, I've loved having a chat and I think everyone else will have loved to hear this. If someone wants to find you, where can they find you? Like on socials, what's your handle? Do you want to leave that for everyone?
My Instagram is Crumble with a K, and TikTok, which I spend more time on at the moment, is Keira.rumble. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Keira.
You know, it took me so long to realize that crumbled was
I get that every day.
Why it took me so long to figure that out. And then when I did, I was like, oh, that's so clever.
Yeah. So many people are like, hey, Rumble. I'm like, no, crumble. It's crumbled foods.
Yeah. I love it. Oh, thanks for chatting with me, doll.
Thank you, honey. Thank you.
Isn't Keira just so incredible and probably one of the most humble, very successful businesswomen I have ever met, which I did say to her, I was like, girl, you need to talk yourself up a little bit more because you have some incredible feats behind you and you should definitely not be shy to talk about your journey and how you have got to the place that you have. Now, I don't want you to think just because this is a guest episode that I am not giving you a little bit of weekly reflection and some podcast homework. That was the rule with this season. I'm going to give you actionable things that you can do around the topic of each episode. So this week, after everything I've discussed with Keira around success and womanhood, I really want you to reflect on this. What definition of success have you been holding on to that no longer serves you? Is there a goal or a version of your life that was once important, but now it isn't? Maybe you've outgrown someone else's timeline. Maybe hustle culture doesn't serve you or doesn't make you happy. Like Keira said, success looks so different to everyone. And just because she is doing, you know, her version of success, that doesn't mean that has to be what lights you up or fulfills you. Maybe having a baby has really shifted your values and shifted how you want to work and how you want to use your success or what the definition of success is to you. I want you to sit down and I want you to reflect on this. And I think a really cool thing that I loved in my chat with Keira is her saying that she was very big on writing things down, right? When she was going through like the pits of her business, she was on the verge of bankruptcy and she needed to pivot and turn. She said, I'm a really big listener to my gut. So that's the reflection part. And then I'm very good at writing things down and assessing them logically. Okay. So I want you to get out pen and paper or, I don't know, a tablet with a pen. I want you to write it, not type it. And I want you to write a new success statement for yourself. One that feels grounded, that feels true to this season. It doesn't have to be long, but a success statement that says, I think success is blah, blah, blah. I will feel successful when blah, blah, blah. I will work towards this version of success by blah, 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 blah. Okay. I want you to put it on paper, write it out, and get it very clear to yourself of what actual success looks like to you and what you're working towards. Of course, if you are feeling brave, please tag us in your success statements, post them on social media, even just privately DM them to me so that I could read them. I would love that. I seriously would love that. So that is our episode for this week. I truly loved how Keira's story was such a true display of persistence, of learning to pause and pivot, on not giving up, on not letting the dream die because you've been faced with, you know, hurdles. I just love that she is such a example of like, if you have a strong passion and you put your all into it, you can have what you want. And that is true in her motherhood journey. And that is also true in her business journey. And I just think that's really inspiring. And it's really nice as someone who's going through a hard season to kind of see someone on the other end and be like, okay, that's why I'm not giving up. That's why I'm not just throwing in the towel, because there is reward for hard work. Anyway, I feel like I've taken up more than enough of your time for the week. So I'm going to leave you there. I'm actually going to love you, and then I'm going to leave you. Sweet dreams.